to talk about get out in the morning sunlight, and I agree with him on that. Do you think that as far as our circadian rhythms are, do you think getting in that morning sunlight on your face, not looking directly at the sun, but letting it get in your eyes, how important is that, do you believe?
It's extremely important. We haven't talked about specifically how it's beneficial. I'll just say this briefly. Each one of our cells, except for our red blood cells, have mitochondria. And there is something called the mitochondrial theory of aging, which states basically that as you age about 40 years, there's a 70% drop in ATP production, which is exactly what the mitochondria is there for. Every single process in your body runs off of ATP. And you can imagine how you would look and feel if you didn't have that energy. Basically, you're like the Energizer Bunny without batteries, okay? So you can imagine how sad that would be. This is exactly what's at the core of many of the diseases that we see in the United States. Diabetes, dementia, obesity, at the core of all of these diseases, the main ones that we see, heart disease, are bad mitochondria. So what they're finding now, and what Russell Ryder's paper and Scott Zimmerman's paper delve into and show the evidence for and cite, is that infrared light can penetrate deeply into the body, can be absorbed by photoreceptors in the mitochondria, which upregulate production of ATP and produce a substance, or increases the production of a substance called melatonin. Now, this is the same melatonin that is produced in your pineal gland for sleep, but this is orders of magnitude higher amounts in the cell, right at the level of the mitochondria. And the purpose of this melatonin is to reduce the key killer of mitochondria over time. And that's something called oxidative stress. Oxidative stress leads to inflammation. It leads to all sorts of diseases. So that's important to understand. So what we're saying again here is that infrared light allows your mitochondria to work at a higher level. They've actually demonstrated this in randomized controlled trials out of University College London, Glenn Jeffrey's lab. And this basically turns the clock back on your aging, okay? Because you're able to produce more energy, have less oxidative stress, have less chances of diabetes and things of that nature. So for many years, we have seen data that shows that people who live in green spaces have less diabetes, have all-cause mortality that is reduced, have reduced hypertension. All sorts of health outcomes are better for people who live in green spaces. And for many years, the scientists said, well, we don't really know what's doing it. Maybe people who live in green spaces have more money and they can get better health care. Maybe they're exercising more. Maybe they're doing all of these things. And so it was kind of poo-pooed in a way that this was all the result of confounders in the studies. Well, an amazing study was just published last year, and it was really exciting. What they did was they went to a 4 square mile area in South Louisville, Kentucky. And they went around to everybody in that area, in that 4 square mile area, and they measured something called CRP levels, or highly sensitive CRP. This is a molecule that is increased in disease. We see higher levels in people who have strokes. We see higher levels in people who have heart disease, all sorts of things. And they measured it. So they just documented what it was. And then they did something unthinkable. They went around and they actually purchased 8,000 mature trees with leaves on them. And they went around and they planted those trees in that 4 square mile area. This is mind-boggling. That's like 2,000 trees in 1 square mile. That's going to have a tremendous effect on that population. They did not put them on any kind of guaranteed income. They did not do an exercise program. They did not change a single variable in that 2-year period while they were planting these trees, except plant the trees. And then they went around and they measured everybody's HSCRP levels. There was a drop of 13 to 30% of highly sensitive CRP levels in those patients, in those subjects. That equates to about what we see when we put people on a 3 times a week moderate exercise program. And all we did was literally, in my opinion, put infrared light reflectors everywhere they could, so that when in the rare incidents where they did go outside, they were getting more infrared light at that time.
While you were telling the story, I was trying to imagine the conversation as the researcher tried to convince the department head to let him buy 8,000 trees. He's like, "You want to do what?" But I love that. That's so awesome. So not only go out in the sun, but get around plants. Go be in the yard, be in the forest, be in the pasture.
That study kind of demonstrated that there actually is something specifically with the trees themselves that's doing something. But you and I both know if we're going to go outside to be with the trees, we're more likely to exercise. We're more likely to get fresh air. Hey, look,
Yes.
there's even something called forest bathing, which is based on the scientific fact that these trees give off chemicals in a good sense that actually improve our immune system. They've done a lot of studies on the Hinoki cypress forests of Japan. It's not just limited to those trees. All these trees that are aromatic give off these types of compounds. And so you're getting a lot of benefit just by doing one thing.